What's going on, guys? So a new James Wan movie is out this weekend, Malignant, and as you know, I'm a huge fan of his films, so naturally I was really looking forward to seeing this. I wasn't planning on doing a video about it necessarily, unless I really loved it, but there was something about Malignant that really struck me, something that doesn't really happen that much anymore, ever, especially in the horror genre, and it's something I want to talk about, and it's the fact that camp doesn't really exist anymore. And I want to talk about why that is, why it's so hard to find a film that does it right, and hopefully how we can see more films that understand what that is and are able to accomplish it in the future. But first, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsor for this video, Star Trek Fleet Command. Star Trek Fleet Command is a free-to-play mobile open-world strategic MMO available on iOS and Android. You can engage in a story-driven Star Trek galaxy, interact with famous characters from the Next Generation, the original series, and the J.J. Abrams films, as well as the Discovery Show and many more. You can play as tons of characters from the multiverse, including Kirk, Spock, Michael Burnham, Data, and Geordi. Combat is real-time in an open world where you defend your allies and punish your foes. You can customize your dream crew of iconic characters and starships with unique powers to make you stand out as the strongest in the galaxy. You can craft your perfect ship, unlock unique ship models, and upgrade their equipment to find the perfect balance of powers. Iconic models like the Enterprise D, the USS Discovery, and the Klingon D4 class are available. Playing the game, I found it really fun to get started. They use Geordi and Data to give you information on how to get started in the game so you can understand how the game works. And while playing the game, I encountered absolutely zero issues with frame rate or slowdown. Everything went really smoothly. And since I am a Star Trek fan myself, I like seeing all the references to the movies, the shows, as well as the characters that I know and love. Star Trek Fleet Command is free to play on iOS and Android. Please check out my link in the description below so you can download the game yourself. So please do check out that link in the description below. Thank you so much to Star Trek Fleet Command for sponsoring this video. Let's keep talking about Malignant. So Malignant follows Madison Mitchell, played by Annabelle Wallace. She's paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens as she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities. So the film is in theaters now and it's streaming on HBO Max, and the marketing for the film definitely pushes it as if it is yet another James Wan Conjuring Universe film. In fact, seeing the trailers for the movie, I must be honest, I was very underwhelmed. I didn't really know what the movie was about. I had seen plenty of TV shows and films where a character is envisioning murders that happen and tries to prevent those murders from happening. It doesn't really feel like anything new. A movie like Minority Report has gone through similar territory. And so I was kind of surprised that he was involved with the film because I felt like it was something he had done many times before until I saw the movie. It's nothing like the trailers. Not even close. I mean, it is very apparent that Warner Brothers either didn't want to give away anything or had no idea how to market this movie and had no clue what audience they should go for, because this is a horror film that embraces camp. It's intentionally silly, purposefully so. And it knows that. And right off the bat here at the beginning of the video, I'm going to avoid spoilers, but I will talk about some later so that we can get a little more in depth about why I wanted to talk about this film so much. For the first half of the movie, I thought it was kind of weird, and it felt a bit like a misfire. I was a little disappointed, to be honest, and I felt like I was watching a film that, I don't know, it almost seemed like a paycheck movie for a while until you realize what's going on, and it's clear that the filmmakers made every effort to conceal certain plot points throughout the first half of the movie so that things later make sense and are seen differently, and you can recontextualize the entire movie and look at it from a different lens. Now, that's something that doesn't happen that much. It usually takes an auteur filmmaker to pull that off, or someone who's made a lot of successful movies and has a big name to be able to convince a studio to give them money to make a film like, say, Split, for instance, that's one thing for a long time until it suddenly isn't. That's really hard to do. A lot of studios don't care about that. They want a film that is easily describable. They want you to be able to instantly know what type of movie you're going to watch, and in your head relate it to other films you've seen before, so you can compare it to those films and go, oh yeah, well, it's like The Conjuring. I like The Conjuring, so I'll watch Malignant. That's what studios want to do. And that's why the trailers for Malignant make it look like Insidious 6 or whatever. It's one of the reasons why movies that have intentionally over-the-top elements, i.e. camp, are really hard to come by. Also, with the way we talk about films nowadays and the way we digest movies and share screenshots and memes and whatever, we don't necessarily understand camp sometimes. Sometimes a film can be unintentionally bad. and they kind of fucked up. And that happens too. But in the case of a movie like Malignant, it's very clear that James Wan and company knew exactly what they were doing. Because things happen in the last half of this movie that are so insane and fucking bonkers that I can't even fully express it to you without talking about spoilers. And I would love to, and so we're going to talk about some spoilers now. As I said, it's on HBO Max, it's in theaters. So throughout the movie, as I already stated, our lead character Madison is witnessing murders. It's sort of like a waking nightmare. And eventually, those bodies are found, and she realizes that she might be able to predict these things before they happen. And there's also a woman, we don't really know who she is, who's being held captive by this guy, Gabriel. This dark form, looking like a fucking Matrix guy with long ass hair. She's just being held in an attic somewhere. We don't really know who she is. There's a crazy opening scene with this deformed looking thing that's being operated on, and it's all just there. The pieces are there, and James Wan doesn't really tell you what they're about. Because of that, the first half of this movie, on first viewing, feels very messy. It feels like, what does all this mean? And it's because we have gotten to a point, I think, and this is just my opinion, and obviously it's very subjective and you might look at it differently. I think we've gotten to a point where studios really want you to know exactly what you're watching when you're watching it, and for there to be no nuance, no surprises, very little hidden things, and you just instantly know what you're seeing when you see it, and there's no questions. That makes for really boring films. You get a lot of films like that nowadays where from the very beginning you know exactly what's going to happen in your head from A to Z, and you really don't even have to watch the movie and you know it's going to be a certain way. A film like Malignant gives you the pieces that you need, but you don't know what they are for half the movie, and you spend half the movie thinking, what the fuck is going on? Which can lead to negative reviews. And they don't always know what to think when they get one of these movies like The Empty Man or Malignant, where it's like, what is this movie, you know? And I love movies like this. The fact that movies like this exist give me hope for some of my really weird shit I've written that I don't know if it'll ever get made. I have one script. I'll just be really real for a second. I have one script I wrote that's my dream movie. If I ever got to make it, I would just be, in heaven if I got to make it the way I want to make it. And I have pitched it multiple times to studios, and there has been some interest. But it always comes down to, I don't know how to market this movie. It's so strange and weird, and it's just, there's no other movie like this movie. And it's kind of sad when you get to a position where you're like, this film, like Malignant, I'm not talking about my script, is so weird and cool and different, but they don't know what to do with it. They just want more of the same. So it kind of gave me hope when I saw this movie that my weird, outrageous script could one day get made. We'll see. I don't know. Talk to in 5 to 10 years, hopefully. But at one point in the movie, Madison's adoptive sister comes across a bunch of VHS tapes that show that Madison, when she was young, had a parasitic twin sprouting from her fucking head. And this thing has been controlling her because they amputated it. But when her abusive husband slammed her head against the wall, this thing awoke. And now all of a sudden, Gabriel is controlling Madison, making her do things backwards, walking backwards, doing fucking parkour. Like, where did this parasitic twin learn how to do this? I don't even know. And the fact that it's just in this film gives me hope for more outrageous horror films like this that don't take themselves too seriously. But they're really hard to market because camp is so lost in translation nowadays. We don't always know how to process it. It's very hard to do camp nowadays. I can't even tell you how many times I have been pitching a horror comedy script and nobody wants to make horror comedies. Barely anybody wants to make comedies anymore because they don't really know what comedy is. They're afraid to be offensive. It's true. So the fact that movies that are this outrageously silly and bonkers get made really give me hope for new, fresh versions of movies that I've seen 1,000 times. The prison scene in this movie alone is worth the price of admission. The entire police station massacre is worth the price of admission. I can tell you that when I started watching the film, I had no idea this would be in it. This is the type of experience I want to have more when I watch movies. I want to not always know what's going to happen. I want to see a film that is not marketable. I want to see a film where a studio is confused about how to market it and they don't know what to do. And so we actually get surprised by a film because we thought it was going to be one thing and it turns out to be something else. Now, for people who want to go into this movie to watch The Conjuring 4, obviously they're going to be disappointed because it's nothing like that. Even Wan himself on his Facebook said, please do not expect The Conjuring when you watch this movie. He said he wanted to make a film that was like a VHS you might have found on the back of a rental shelf in the 1980s, and he succeeded. And I think a lot of this can also be attributed to the way we perceive our expectations based off of a film's trailer or its poster. So for instance, if this exact movie existed in the exact way it does, except the casting choice of Annabelle Wallis was changed to Nicolas Cage. Like if Nicolas Cage had a parasitic twin sprouting out of the back of his head and walked backwards in a prison, fucking killing people, would more people have accepted the fact that the film is so insane? I'd be willing to bet that they would. That makes me question how we perceive our expectations for a film based off of the way a movie studio sells it to us, which I don't think is necessarily fair. Movies like this don't get made anymore, and I love that James Wan made it, but I really hope that it doesn't take someone who's made Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring, and Aquaman to make a film like this. I really hope that more chances like this are given to other filmmakers who necessarily don't have that incredible filmography. But still, Malignant is a movie that for about half of the runtime is kind of strange and slightly off-putting. But once you realize what's going on and you realize that woman in the attic is related to Madison, all of that makes sense all of a sudden, and the movie becomes way better once you realize what's happening. And so much of the way critics review films nowadays is based on that first viewing, which isn't necessarily fair. Looking at a film and really the entire context of it, Malignant makes sense from beginning to end for the most part. There's a few scenes that I'm like, well, how did she see him down on the road? If it's in her, like, is she just imagining that, you know? If he's a parasite on the back of her head, how does her skin flaps like fold back up? I don't give a shit, honestly. I had fun watching this movie. This movie surprised me. It took me on a trip. I don't get that hardly ever. So thank you, James Wan, for making such a weird movie. I love you. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. I hope you check out Malignant. Let me know what you think of it. As always, you're the best. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.